And it's saying, be filled with the Spirit. So it's like every day-to-day activity. It's not like one time when someone laid the hand on you, you got filled with the Spirit, and you could have even spoken different tongues or explicitly, or have other signs of goodness or spiritual gifts on you. But I'm not talking about things. It's not one time. Let me prove this, because some of you are looking puzzled. Priestley, you're telling, filled with the Spirit. I'm already filled with the Spirit. And there was someone who laid hands on me, and I was already filled with the Spirit. Let me tell you, in Acts chapter 2, we all know about this Pentecost. When during the day of Pentecost, a wind came in, a noise like a wind came in, and they were able to see the tongues of fire. Is that right? And they separated from each other, came and sat on their head, and they began to speak in tongues. And we know, and when you look at this verse in Acts chapter 2, you could clearly see those things. And Acts chapter 2, verse 1 to 4. And I'm going to read verse 4. Verse 3, they saw what seemed to be tongues of fire that separated and came on rest on each of them. All of them were filled with the Holy Spirit. That was the time they were all filled with the Holy Spirit. That is true, they got filled with the Holy Spirit. And again, when they were filled with the Holy Spirit at this stage, Peter was also there, and Peter was also filled with the Holy Spirit. And when you read through Acts chapter 3, and there was another story, and we all know this famous story of a crippled beggar, and he was crying for alms, and Peter and John walking, and he said, silver and gold I don't have any, and rise up in the hand of Jesus Christ. Remember all the song? Remember the song? I can't sing, sorry. So and during that time, there was a great strife, and people arrested Peter and John during that time. After the story, when you look at chapter 3, end of chapter 3, and chapter 4 will tell you, the priest and the captain of the temple guard, the first verse in chapter 4, and the Sadducees came to Peter and John while they were speaking to people. And verse 3, they seized Peter and John because it was evening, and put them in jail until the next day. And they were arrested after this incident. They were arrested. These were the people who were already filled with Holy Spirit. Okay? These people were already filled with Holy Spirit. And now on verse 8, the verse clearly says, then Peter, filled with the Holy Spirit, said to them, if they are already filled with the Holy Spirit, why this verse, when you look at this verse 8, it says, then Peter, filled with the Holy Spirit. It says, again, filled with the Holy Spirit. So it is not a one-time experience. Being filled with the Holy Spirit is not a one-time experience. It is ongoing. It's like every day we got to be filled with the Holy Spirit. And if you're not convinced with this one, and when you read further in chapter 4, verse 32, and there were again a prayer meeting, like just in the case of Pentecost, where the people were gathered and they were doing prayers, and verse 32, and all the believers were in one accord, and 31, and they prayed. The place where they were meeting was shaken, and they were filled with the Holy Spirit. Look, the people are getting filled with the Holy Spirit again and again, because it is not one-time event. It is something that we need to do every day. Every day, get filled with Holy Spirit. That is what our core text says in Ephesians chapter 5:18. Be filled with Holy Spirit. That's a commandment Paul gives us. And we know what's happening, why we need Holy Spirit. We know what Holy Spirit could do for us, and what are the things we know with the Holy Spirit. We know all these things, but we forget this important thing, being filled with the Spirit. And some of us saying, okay, the being filled with the Spirit, they confuse with receiving the Holy Spirit, two different things. You could receive the Holy Spirit at any time, but will not be filled with the Spirit. Or you could receive someone at your home. You could call someone and invite him, but not occupying them or not talking to them. You could invite them and ask them to sit on the corner and receive them and be with them, but not completely ignoring him. That is receiving the Holy Spirit. We all receive the Holy Spirit. I'm not arguing against that. We all have the Holy Spirit. We have received Him, but we have not filled with the Holy Spirit. Two different things. And for the people who say, I'm already filled with the Holy Spirit, I'm saying being filled with the Holy Spirit is a day-to-day thing. It is not one time. It is not one time. People, and there is something called completely or fully filled with Holy Spirit or partially filled with Holy Spirit. And it could be half filled. And you could be completely filled. Let me tell you from the story of Stephen. And we all know the story of Stephen. And Acts chapter 6. We all know the story where two people came together. And when the church was growing, there was an argument going between Greeks and Jews. And the Greeks widows were overlooked because of Hebrew Jews. And we know the stories, and the apostles appointed 12 men, or 7 men I think, 7 men to take care of all these things. And one of them was Stephen. And Stephen starts like this, in chapter 6, verse 5. The second half. They chose Stephen, a man full of faith and full of the Holy Spirit. A man full of the faith and the Holy Spirit. He is the man who is full of something. Is full of faith and full of Holy Spirit. So when the word that full says, there could be someone who is partially of faith and partially of Holy Spirit. You see the difference? When there is no need for someone to put the word full there, because they put in the word full there, it means there is half full. There could be half full. You could be filled with Holy Spirit in some of the areas of your life. You could be filled with the Holy Spirit in commitment to the church, or you could be, and you won't be having any other fruits, or you'll be committed, you'll be serving the church, you'll be serving, but you are not filled with the Holy Spirit in other areas, like in holiness. Or you may be filled with the Holy Spirit in just one area, or in your work area, just like in Old Testament, where these people were filled with Holy Spirit to enable them as a skillful workers. And you could be filled with Holy Spirit in one area, but not other areas. What I'm talking to you is full of Holy Spirit. Stephen is the man who was full of Holy Spirit. He was not partial. Let me explain this further to you. There was a man by name Ananias. Ananias is like in chapter 5. We all know the story of this man. Is it Ananias? Yeah. Chapter 5, verse 1. Ananias and Sapphira. And chapter 5 follows chapter 4. In chapter 4, verse 31, you know God has filled everyone there. When they all prayed, there were rumors shaken, and they were filled with Holy Spirit. And these people were among them. They were filled with Holy Spirit. But they were not fully filled. Because they have this partial area which has the selfishness. When everyone was trying to give away or give everything to the church during that time, these people sold the property and gave and brought the money. But they deceived some money, kept it for themselves. When you look at the verse 3, I think you could clearly see that thing. Verse 2. With his wife's full knowledge, he kept back part of the money. It's like part of the heart has been kept. Part is not fully filled with Holy Spirit. There is some part missing in this puzzle. You know what I'm talking about? Being filled with Holy Spirit. And being filled with Holy Spirit is completely different to receiving Holy Spirit. Being filled with Holy Spirit is a day-to-day thing. It's not one time being filled with Holy Spirit. It's not getting Holy Spirit once and said, okay, this pastor came from USA and they laid hand on me and I was filled with Holy Spirit. That completely changed. No, that's something ongoing, because Ephesians 5:13 clearly says, be filled with the Holy Spirit. It is the commandment. And most of the dangerous thing is what we think is we are already filled with Holy Spirit. And so when we have this thought in our mind, we never try to get the fulfillment of it. We'll never get the fullness of it. And Because we always think we are rich. Bible says it is very hard for a rich man to get into the kingdom.